terrible. Oh, okay, here we go. A look into the future. The year is 1983. The future. And I'm 34 years old. Right now I'm traveling all over the world while writing my book. My husband and I are really both actors, but we decided we would take a year off, seeing that we were doing so well.
But life didn't turn out exactly the way she imagined. Returning from 4 years in Indonesia, JulieTaymor lived as a struggling artist alone in New York City.
I first met JulieTaymor, I believe it was in 1982 or 1983, when she came to the American Repertory Theater with a portfolio of the work she'd been doing in Bali. She showed me her masks, she showed me her puppets, and they were really dazzling. I had the opportunity to offer her directing jobs, and I didn't grab that opportunity, to my eternal regret and eternal shame.
Many people pigeonholed Julie early in her career. She was often spoken about as just a designer, or a mask maker, or a puppeteer, but not as a director.
What is work with puppets? Puppets do not manipulate by themselves. I work with puppets. No. I work with people. The people work with the puppets.
A miracle? Yes! I am a king's son, truth be told. At least I was in days of old. An ogre changed me into a bird.
And that makes it even more difficult when you think that you have to have an actor sublimate their ego to an object or a mask.
Give us your best guess.
But the puppet part of my life is only a part of my life. It's the reason it has become so much talked about is because it's unique.
Julie continued her work in puppetry and mask design until a young composer named Elliot Goldenthal stepped into her life.
A friend of Julie's named Christoph Gierke, who is German, and he was a producer. He looked at me and he says, yeah, Elliot, I met this girl, her name is Julie. She's quite wonderful, and I think you would like her because your work is equally as grotesque as hers. It's completely like World War III.
We are similar in our tastes, in our love of the sacred juxtaposed with the profane, the bawdiness with the spirituality, the elegance and the beauty with the real funky stuff. We have a joy for those same things. Just an introduction to characters, so it is color.
We have a special language, almost a shorthand, because of our theater background. When we work in film, it's not purely filmic conversation. It also involves theatricality. I know.
Come on.
Julie and Elliot's first musical extravaganza was called Liberties Taken, a raucous tale of the love between a scoundrel and a patriot set during the American Revolution. JulieTaymor was not only the designer, but the director.
You never knew you could. The land you stand on toes.
I saw Liberties Taken one summer night in 1985 and knew that I was looking at something brand new that had never happened before in the American theater. As a matter of fact, I invested it. I helped Julie get it on in a summer theater. It was an amazing, amazing production.
After 2 weeks in Ipswich, Massachusetts, Liberties Taken was taken away.
We couldn't get the money to bring it to Broadway. It was a big show. Norman Lear was wonderful, and he supported the first, but he wasn't sure he wanted to pay for the whole Broadway. It was a little before its time, I think, Liberties Taken. The form, the idea that 15 people could play 200 parts by switching masks and using puppets, it wasn't something that people knew would work.
And they make a terrific team. He's a great musician, great composer, Elliot Goldenthal. And he's written the music for virtually all the work that Julie has done.
He's really one of the greatest composers that we have in America, dramatically in particular. We worked together for 5 years before we started to become involved with each other, so we'd already established the director-composer relationship. And we've worked together now for 15 years, I think. Has it been that long? Yeah. We've worked together an awfully long time.
very romantic. And they're so in love that you can see it.
It's not difficult for us to separate, to make the boundaries. We can just close the door and then have a personal life. And then the art part of it can enter that, which is the joy of it.
Even if we're walking on a beach or even if we're at a restaurant, invariably we talk about work. And many people might not think of this as fun.
But that's where they're coming from.
Always eager to experiment, Julie, with Elliot composing, began to play in a new medium, film.
As she went on, the budgets grew. As the budgets grew, she did have many more possibilities.
One, go!
She took on material that was increasingly intense, that dealt with themes of violence, passion.
This is about Pt3 and Hop Frog, these two small people who actually burn this court, just completely have a political coup.
No, I don't think you can just call something political. It's maybe about a social illness in the sense of prejudice against them because they're dwarfs, because they're little people, and therefore they're abused and used. We do look at dwarfs. It's incredible because having worked with them, I experienced this as objects, as toys.
I warn you!
I beg your highness, spare him.
Their worldview is so intense and so shocking, much more than anything, more than being black or Chinese or Jewish or whatever. Being a dwarf is such an isolating experience. The reason I picked that technique of using puppets to be the large king and his ministers and ladies was it allowed the audience to identify with the only real human beings, forced them by isolating the dwarfs. Michael Anderson, who played Hop Frog, said this is the first time where he was the human and not the special effect, and where he was surrounded by these grotesques and he wasn't the grotesque. And that was incredible. I understand obsession with work. So if Elliot has to work all night long, if there's no going out, there's no this or that, I understand that, and he does as well, because either we're working together or we understand what you have to do.
A trip to Mexico inspired Julie and Elliot to create an off-Broadway musical about a jaguar who turns into a boy. A new kind of musical, a carnival mass called Juan Darien.
We were at a hotel on an island, I think it was Isla Mujeres. It was very late, and we looked out and across the street. We saw the shadow of a woman combing another woman's hair. We saw lovers quarreling. We heard 3 different types of music in different windows, on very, very sultry, really, really hot summer night. And the effect of 3 or 4 musics going on at once was something that stuck, and we actually found a way to incorporate it into Juan Darien.
Elliot always saw Juan Darien as a veiled Christ story. This jaguar that becomes human, and then through man's fear of the outsider and of the dark side, is burned alive, and in the burning he transforms back into a jaguar. And the carnival mass, what is carnival about? It's about the underbelly of the human being. It's a theme that I've worked with over and over and over again. It's an incredible tale, and I think people don't even know what to call it. But there were times where we really thought, oh God, this is a disaster. A total disaster.
My spring is broken. Which spring? Make it look like
They're all wrong. They're all not centered. We need a serious flaw. Do you want me to adjust the spring? All of these things are in the wrong place.
In the end, Juan Darien was dark, grotesque, and dazzling. The critics raved.
It was so different than anything else anybody had seen. But what was so sweet about it was ours together as well.
A revival of Juan Darien at Lincoln Center in 1996 brought this avant-garde artist her first taste of mainstream recognition. And soon, an offer from a pop culture giant too good to refuse. And when we return...
I get a phone call saying, do you want to come in and talk to us about The Lion King?